Max Caldwell had it all: wealth, fame, and a luxurious lifestyle that many could only dream of. However, everything changed in an instant when a stranger accidentally scratched his luxury car. Ava Moore, the woman responsible for the damage, was nothing like the people Max usually interacted with. Independent, strong, and unimpressed by his wealth, Ava intrigued him. Could a millionaire like Max, living in a world of excess, learn to appreciate what truly matters? And more importantly, could love bridge the gap between their vastly different worlds? If you enjoy this story, don't forget to like, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel for more meaningful stories. Max Caldwell stepped out of a high-end cafe, holding a steaming cup of espresso. It was a typical afternoon in New York, with the traffic rushing by and pedestrians crowding the sidewalks, embodying the city's never-ending energy. As Max checked his phone, skimming through emails from business partners, a sharp sound caught his attention: a scrape. He turned quickly to see that his sleek silver Aston Martin had just been scratched. A woman stood nearby, looking alarmed. Holding an old bicycle, she seemed to be the cause of the damage. She didn't resemble the people from Max's social circles, wearing a faded denim jacket, well-worn skinny jeans, and scuffed white sneakers. Her brown hair was pulled back hastily into a ponytail, a few loose strands framing her face. But it was her eyes, sharp and gray, filled with independence and a hint of defiance, that captured Max's attention the most. She stepped forward, apologizing. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I just parked and didn't realize." Max glanced at the scratch and then back at her. Normally, he would have been furious. Such a car wasn't something just anyone could afford, and repairs would likely be costly. But instead of reacting with anger, he simply raised an eyebrow and asked calmly, "Are you okay?" The woman blinked, surprised by his reaction. "I'm fine, but your car..." She trailed off. "The car can be fixed. You, on the other hand, can't," Max said with a shrug, slipping his phone into his pocket. "What's your name?" "Ava. Ava Moore," she replied. "I'm Max," he said. She hesitated. "You're not mad?" Max shrugged again. "Would getting mad change anything?" Ava let out a small laugh, her anxiety fading. "I guess not." Max observed her for a moment. She wasn't like the women he usually encountered, those who sought to impress him with their wealth and status. Ava, on the other hand, seemed to navigate life on her own terms, without depending on anyone else. "Do you live around here?" Max asked, partly out of curiosity, partly to keep the conversation going. "I work at a bakery nearby," Ava replied. "I usually ride my bike because it's more convenient." Max glanced at her old, well-used bicycle. "I guess bakeries don't pay much?" he asked. Ava shrugged. "I don't work there for the money. I love baking, and I love seeing people smile when they get their favorite pastries. That's what matters to me." Max was silent for a moment. That wasn't the answer he expected. In his world, people chased after money, power, and status. But Ava was different. She worked for passion, not profit. A cold breeze swept through the street, and Ava pulled her thin jacket tighter around herself. Max noticed she wasn't dressed warmly enough for the weather. "Do you have time for a cup of coffee?" he asked. Ava raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Are you asking me out for coffee?" Max chuckled. "Yes, to make up for the little accident." She studied him for a long moment, as if weighing her options. Finally, she nodded. "All right, but I get to pick the place." They ended up at a small coffee shop on the corner, nothing like the luxurious cafes Max usually frequented. Ava ordered a cappuccino while Max stuck with his espresso. "What do you do for a living?" Ava asked, taking a sip of her coffee. Max smiled. "I run an investment firm." She raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like one of those guys in movies, always in expensive suits. buying up small companies and turning them into big corporations. Max laughed. Not entirely wrong. Ava set her cup down and propped her chin on her hand. So why is a guy like you worried about a little scratch on his car? I thought you'd be yelling at me or calling your lawyer. Max thought for a moment before answering. Honestly, maybe because I'm tired of chasing superficial things. I meet a lot of people who only care about my name, my money. But you're different. Ava was quiet, as if analyzing his words. Finally, she smirked. I'll take that as a compliment. Max met her gray eyes and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Genuine interest in a conversation. When they stepped outside, the sky had darkened. Ava checked her watch and said, I should get going. Max felt an unfamiliar twinge of regret, a feeling he rarely experienced after a brief encounter. Can I see you again? He asked. Ava tilted her head, considering. Then she smiled. If you happen to stop by the bakery early in the morning, I might save the best pastry for you. Max chuckled. Then I guess I'll have to stop by. Ava waved before pedaling away, leaving Max standing there, intrigued by something that had nothing to do with business or wealth. He didn't know exactly what it was about Ava that drew him in, but one thing was certain. This encounter wasn't just a coincidence, and it could change everything. Max wasn't the type to wake up early, but the next morning, he found himself standing outside the bakery where Ava worked. The glass windows radiated warmth, and the scent of fresh pastries and brewed coffee filled the air. Inside, Ava was busy behind the counter, swiftly decorating small pastries. When she saw Max leaning against the door, she chuckled. I didn't think you'd actually show up. Max shrugged. I never break a promise. She nodded, grabbing a small tart from the display and handing it to him. Here, I saved this for you. But if you think you can eat without paying, I'll have to charge you a service fee. Max laughed, pulling out his wallet to pay. So do I get a discount for being a regular? Ava shook her head. You have to come at least 5 times before you qualify. He took a bite. The buttery crust and sweet raspberry filling melted on his tongue. This is really good. Of course it is. Ava raised an eyebrow. Did you think I was bad at this? Max chuckled. She wasn't trying to impress him. She was simply being herself, and that intrigued him. They chatted for a while, but the morning rush soon forced Ava back to work. Max left, but an unfamiliar feeling lingered. The urge to return, to know more about her, was strong. And so, in the following days, he started visiting the bakery more often. At first, he told himself it was just curiosity, but he couldn't remember the last time he felt this at ease. His change in routine didn't go unnoticed, especially by those in his social circle, people who only cared about status, wealth, and connections. One evening, at an exclusive finance industry event, Max was engaged in conversation with a few business partners when a familiar voice sounded behind him. You've been disappearing lately. Max turned to see Lucas Sterling, his longtime friend and colleague, raising an eyebrow. Lucas crossed his arms. I heard you've been spending time at a bakery. Max took a sip of his wine, unfazed, and Lucas let out a laugh. Max! Don't tell me you actually care about this woman. Max frowned. She has a name, Ava. Lucas shrugged. Whatever. But don't you think she's a bit different from the kind of people you usually associate with? Max knew exactly what Lucas was implying. Ava wasn't a business executive. She wasn't the daughter of a billionaire. She wasn't on the acceptable list of their elite circles. I don't see why this is any of your concern, Max said. Lucas chuckled, but there was a sharpness in his eyes. Max, you're one of the most influential people in finance. If you start a relationship with someone outside our world, it's going to affect your reputation. And trust me, the media won't let this slide. A wave of irritation washed over Max. I don't need anyone's permission to date whoever I want. Lucas smirked. You might think that, but you don't live in that kind of world. You can't change the way society works just because of some pastry girl. Max gripped his glass tightly, saying nothing. The days that followed only deepened Max's feelings for Ava. He continued to visit her at the bakery, often finding solace in the simplicity of their conversations. She was never interested in his wealth or status, and for the first time in years, Max felt like he was just a man, not a brand. But the more time they spent together, the more the people around him began to question his choices. One evening, Max sat in his office, staring at his phone. An invitation for a gala event appeared on the screen. Another night filled with powerful people, luxury, and endless opportunities. His finger hovered over the RSVP button, but his mind wandered to Ava. The gala was exactly the kind of event where his peers expected him to shine, but as he imagined himself surrounded by the usual faces, the thought of being in a room full of people who cared only about wealth made him feel suffocated. He shoved the phone aside and called his assistant. "Cancel the RSVP for the gala," he said, his voice firm. "I've got something else I need to do." He then stood, grabbing his coat. It was time to see Ava again. At the bakery, Ava was wiping down the counter when Max walked in. She raised an eyebrow. "Well, look who decided to grace us with his presence. What happened to the gala?" she asked with a teasing smile. "I decided it wasn't my thing anymore," Max replied, leaning against the counter. "I'm more interested in this place." Max smirked. "Maybe I am, but mostly, I wanted to see you." Her expression softened, and for a brief moment, they just stood there, silently understanding each other in a way no one else could. Then Ava broke the silence. "You know, you're starting to make a habit of this." "Good habits are hard to break," Max replied, his voice low with sincerity. Ava looked at him, her eyes studying him carefully. "You know, not everyone is going to be thrilled about this." Max frowned. "What do you mean?" Ava sighed and leaned against the counter. "People talk. And you're not just anyone, Max. You're a powerful guy, the kind of people you associate with. They're not going to like the idea of you being with someone like me." Max stepped closer, his voice steady but determined. "I don't care what they think. I've spent enough time worrying about what other people want, and I'm done with that. You're the one I want to be with." Ava's heart skipped a beat. "But are you sure? This isn't the life you're used to. You have everything: money, status, power. Do you really want to give all of that up for someone like me?" Max gently cupped her face in his hands, lifting her chin so she met his gaze. "I don't need anything but you. You're the first person who's made me feel like there's more to life than just work and money." Ava felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of relief and fear. "I don't want to be the reason your world falls apart," she whispered. Max shook his head. "I'm not worried about that. The only thing that matters now is that we're together." They stood in the quiet of the bakery, the weight of their words hanging in the air. Max knew that choosing Ava would mean facing a new set of challenges, but for the first time in years, he felt ready for them. As days turned into weeks, their relationship blossomed, but the pressure from Max's world continued to mount. Friends, colleagues, even family members began to question his decisions. "Are you really sure about this?" Lucas asked one night, his tone laced with concern. "People are starting to talk, and it's not going to be pretty." Max looked at him, his resolve unwavering. "I'm sure. I'm not looking for approval anymore, Lucas. I'm doing what feels right for me." But as much as Max tried to drown out the noise from his old world, it became harder to ignore. The media caught wind of his relationship with Ava, and soon the headlines were everywhere. The powerful businessman with a penchant for luxury had chosen to be with a woman who worked at a bakery. People laughed, speculated, and judged. But the more the world criticized them, the more Max and Ava stood firm in their bond. One evening, while they were out for a walk in Central Park, Ava stopped and turned to face Max. "Do you think we'll ever be able to escape all of this?" she asked quietly, the weight of the world heavy in her voice. Max took her hand in his, gently squeezing it. "I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing. I'm not going to let anyone tell me who I should love, and I'm not letting go of you." Ava smiled, her heart swelling with affection for him. "Good," she whispered, "because I'm not letting go either." And so, despite the challenges and the world's harsh opinions, Max and Ava's love grew stronger, proving that even in a world obsessed with wealth and status, true love could bridge any divide.